The wedding invitation wasn't a gesture of goodwill. It was a front-row ticket to my own humiliation. Brandon wanted me there to prove he'd upgraded. What he didn't know was that I'd be walking in on the arm of the most dangerous man in the city. And by the time the ceremony ended, his perfect life would be in ruins. Wait, does she actually marry the mafia boss? Or is this just for show? And what happens when Brandon realizes who he's dealing with? Subscribe now and hit that notification bell because you do not want to miss what happens next. Trust me, this story is about to get insane. The envelope was beautiful. That was the worst part. Vicky McDonald stood behind the counter of Eddie's Diner, her hands trembling as she stared at the cream-colored cardstock with its gold embossed lettering. The kind of invitation that cost more than her weekly paycheck. The kind that screamed wealth, taste, and careful planning. Mr. Brandon Mitchell and Ms. Sienna Hargrove request the honor of your presence. She didn't need to read the rest. She'd memorized every word in the 3 days since it arrived, tucked inside her mailbox like a bomb waiting to detonate. You gonna stare at that thing all night? Or you gonna take table 7's order? Vicky jumped, shoving the invitation back into her apron pocket. Her co-worker, Tommy, raised an eyebrow, but said nothing as he slid past her with a tray of burgers. The dinner rush was dying down, leaving only a handful of regulars nursing coffee and pie at the counter. She should be grateful for the distraction, for the noise and grease smell and constant motion that kept her from thinking too hard about anything. But tonight, the invitation felt like it was burning a hole through her pocket, branding itself into her skin. He invited me to his wedding. The thought looped endlessly, a record skip she couldn't fix. Brandon Mitchell, her ex-boyfriend of 3 years, the man she'd loved with every naive cell in her body, had sent her an invitation to watch him marry someone else. Not just someone else. Sienna Hargrove. Vicky grabbed a coffee pot and made her rounds, refilling cups on autopilot. Smile. Nod. Ask about dessert. Pretend her world wasn't crumbling in slow motion. She met Brandon 4 years ago at a marketing seminar she'd attended on a whim, hoping to learn how to promote the catering business she dreamed of starting. He'd been magnetic, charming, ambitious, with a smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. When he'd asked for a number, she'd felt chosen. For 3 years, she'd shaped her life around his. She'd worked double shifts at the diner to help fund his startup phase when his marketing agency was struggling. She'd canceled her enrollment in culinary school because he said they needed to focus on one career at a time and has had more potential. She'd made herself smaller, quieter, less demanding, convinced that love meant sacrifice. And then, 6 months ago, her phone buzzed during her morning shift. Not a call, a text. Vicky, I think we want different things. You're amazing, but I need someone who matches my ambition. I hope you understand. I think it's better we don't talk for a while. Take care. 43 words. That's all their relationship had been worth. She called him 17 times that day. He never answered. 2 weeks later, his Instagram exploded with engagement photos. Brandon on one knee in front of the sunset. Brandon kissing a stunning brunette with perfect skin and a rock the size of a walnut on her finger. The caption, found my forever. She believes in my dreams. Hashtag blessed, hashtag power couple, hashtag new beginnings. The comments have been worse. Wow, major upgrade. You two are goals. Finally found someone on your level, bro. Vicky had deleted Instagram that night and hadn't opened it since. Earth to Vicky. She blinked. Elena Torres, her best friend and the bar's evening manager, stood in front of her, arms crossed, dark eyes narrowed with concern. Sorry, Vicky mumbled. Zoned out. Yeah, I noticed. Elena glanced around, then jerked her head toward the back. Take 5. You look like you're about to pass out. They slipped into the kitchen's storage room, a cramped space that smelled like onions and industrial cleaner. Elena leaned against a rack of canned tomatoes, waiting. Vicky pulled out the invitation. No. Elena's voice was flat. Absolutely not. I haven't said anything yet. You don't have to. I can see it on your face. Elena snatched the invitation, scanned it, then shook her head. He invited you to his wedding, to watch him marry a trust fund heiress. And you're actually considering going. I need closure. Closure? Elena's laugh was sharp. Vicky, he dumped you via text and got engaged 2 weeks later. The closure is that he's a shallow, status-obsessed asshole who never deserved you. Then why can't I stop thinking about it? Vicky's voice cracked. Why do I still wake up wondering what I did wrong? What does she has that I don't? Elena's expression softened. She stepped forward, gripping Vicky's shoulders. You didn't do anything wrong. He's just a coward who realized you were too good for him and traded up for someone who'd look better in his Instagram feed. He didn't trade up. He found someone better. Stop. Elena's voice turned sharp. Don't you dare. Sienna Hargrove didn't earn Brandon's love. She inherited a trust fund and came pre-packaged with country club memberships and investment properties. You gave him everything, and he threw you away the second someone shinier came along. Vicky looked down at the invitation, her thumb tracing the embossed letters. You're cordially invited. He wants me there to watch him win, she whispered. That's what this is, isn't it? Proof that he made the right choice. Exactly. Which is why you should throw that thing in the garbage and forget he exists. But Vicky couldn't forget. That was the problem. She'd spent 6 months replaying every conversation, every moment, searching for the point where she'd failed him. The time she'd been too tired from work to go to his networking events. The nights she'd fallen asleep during his pitch rehearsals. The way she'd stopped wearing makeup because she was too exhausted after 14-hour shifts. Maybe if she'd tried harder, been better, been more. I think I need to go, Vicky said quietly. Vicky, I need to see it. I need to watch him marry her and finally accept that I wasn't enough. Maybe then I'll stop wondering. Maybe then I can move on. Elena studied her for a long moment, frustration and pity warring in her expression. Finally, she sighed. You're not going to let this go, are you? I can't. Then at least promise me you won't go alone. Let me come with you. Moral support. And someone to drive you home when you inevitably realize what a mistake it was. Vicky managed a weak smile. Deal. Elena pulled her into a hug, tight and fierce. You're worth 10 of him, you know that? Vicky didn't answer. She couldn't. Because deep down, in the place where shame and self-doubt lived, she didn't believe it at all. Later that night, after her shift ended and she'd stumbled back to her studio apartment, Vicky sat on her worn couch and stared at the invitation on her coffee table. The wedding was in 2 weeks. 14 days to prepare herself for the most humiliating experience of her life. She picked up her phone, scrolling through old photos she hadn't had the strength to delete. Brandon's arm around her shoulders at a company party. The two of them at the beach, sun-kissed and laughing. A selfie from a night he'd said he loved her for the first time, her eyes bright with hope and stupid, reckless joy. You're amazing, he'd told her that night. I can't believe how lucky I am. What had changed? When had amazing become not enough? Vicky set her phone down and pressed the heels of her hands against her eyes, willing herself not to cry. She'd cried enough. 6 months of tears and sleepless nights and bone-deep exhaustion that no amount of coffee could fix. Maybe Elena was right. Maybe going to the wedding was masochistic and self-destructive and exactly the kind of thing someone with healthy boundaries would never do. But Vicky had never been good at boundaries. She'd spent 3 years erasing herself for Brandon, convincing herself that love meant putting someone else's dreams first, that being supportive meant being invisible. And now she had a choice. She could throw away the invitation, block Brandon on every platform, and pretend the past 3 years had never happened. Or she could show up, sit in that church, watch him pledge his life to someone else, and finally, accept the truth she'd been running from. She hadn't been enough, and she never would be. Vicky picked up the invitation one more time, her fingers trembling. Mr. Brandon Mitchell and Ms. Sienna Hargrove. Fine, she whispered to the empty room. I'll go. She didn't know it yet, but that decision would change everything. Because 2 weeks from now, she wouldn't walk into that church alone and invisible. She'd walk in on the arm of the most dangerous man in the city, and Brandon Mitchell's perfect life would shatter like glass. The clock above the register read 2:17 a.m. Vicky wiped down the counter for the third time, her movements mechanical, her mind 1,000 miles away. The late shift was usually quiet, just her, Tommy in the back doing prep work, and the occasional drunk stumbling in for pancakes and regret. Tonight, though, the diner was empty, just fluorescent lights humming overhead, the smell of burnt coffee, and the distant sound of traffic on the street outside. She should go home. Her shift had technically ended at 2, but the thought of returning to her apartment, to the silence and the wedding invitation still sitting on her coffee table, made her want to scream. So she stayed, wiping counters that were already clean, refilling napkin dispensers that were already full. Anything to keep her hands busy and her brain from spiraling. The bell above the door chimed. Vicky looked up, plastering on her customer service smile. "Welcome to Eddie's. Sit anywhere you." The words died in her throat. The man who just walked and wasn't drunk. He wasn't a truck driver or a college student or any of the usual late-night regulars. He was different. Tall, easily over 6 feet, with dark hair swept back from a face that looked like it had been carved from marble. All sharp angles and strong jawline. He wore a suit that probably cost more than her car, charcoal gray with a subtle pinstripe, perfectly tailored to shoulders that suggested he spent as much time in the gym as the boardroom. But it wasn't the suit or the looks that made Vicky's pulse stutter. It was the way he moved, controlled, deliberate, like a predator who knew exactly how dangerous he was and didn't need to prove it. He scanned the diner with eyes so dark they were almost black, assessing, calculating. Then those eyes landed on her, and Vicky felt pinned in place. "Coffee," he said. His voice was low, smooth, with an edge that suggested arguing would be unwise. "Black." "Sure. Of course." Vicky fumbled for a mug, her hands suddenly clumsy. "Would you, like to see a menu?" "Just coffee." He slid into a booth by the window, his back to the wall, eyes on the door. Old habit, Vicky thought. The kind you picked up when you needed to see threats coming. She poured the coffee with shaking hands, cursing herself for being ridiculous. He was just a customer, a well-dressed, absurdly attractive customer who probably had a dozen reasons for being in a diner at 2 a.m. that had nothing to do with her. When she set the mug in front of him, he looked up, and she made the mistake of meeting his eyes. "Thank you." He glanced at her name tag. Vicky. The way he said her name, like he was testing how it felt in his mouth, sent a shiver down her spine. "No problem. Let me know if you need anything else." She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. "Rough night." Vicky froze, then turned back slowly. "Excuse me?" He gestured to her face. "You've been crying. Recently, I guess. Your eyes are red, and you've got that look people get when they're holding themselves together by sheer force of will." Heat flooded her cheeks. "I'm fine." "I didn't ask if you were fine. I asked if you had a rough night." He took a sip of coffee, watching her over the rim of the mug. "There's a difference." Vicky opened her mouth, then closed it. She should walk away, tell him to mind his own business, return to her safe spot behind the counter, and wait for him to leave. Instead, she heard herself say, "Why do you care?" A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Call it curiosity. You don't strike me as someone who works graveyard shifts at a diner because life went according to plan. And you don't strike me as someone who drinks coffee at 2 in the morning because everything's going great." The smile widened, revealing perfect white teeth. "Touché." They stared at each other for a moment, the air between them charged with something Vicky couldn't name. "I should get back to work," she said finally. "Should you?" He glanced around the empty diner. "Seems pretty slow." "That's not the point." "Then what is?" "That you're making me nervous. That I can't tell if you're dangerous or just intense. That the way you're looking at me makes me feel seen for the first time in months, and I don't know what to do with that." "The point," Vicky said carefully, "is that I don't know you, and you don't know me, so this conversation is weird." "Fair enough." He leaned back in the booth, still watching her with those unsettling dark eyes. My name is Alexandra James. I own several businesses in the city. I don't sleep much, which is why I'm here at 2 a.m. And I think you're lying when you say you're fine. Vicky's heart hammered. That's not, I didn't. Your bag. He nodded toward her purse behind the counter, where the corner of the wedding invitation peeked out from the unzipped pocket. You keep looking at it. Whatever's in there is bothering you. She should be angry, offended that this stranger was psychoanalyzing her. But instead, she felt something crack inside her chest. It's a wedding invitation, she said quietly. For my ex-boyfriend. He wants me to watch him marry someone else. Alexandro's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. And you're going? I haven't decided. That's a lie. You've already decided. You just don't want to admit it. Vicky bristled. You don't know anything about me. I know you're someone who apologizes for existing. Who makes herself small because it's easier than demanding space. Who's convinced herself that settling for crumbs is the same as being loved. He set down his coffee mug with a soft click. And I know that invitation is eating you alive because you're still trying to figure out what you did wrong. When the truth is, you didn't do anything wrong. He did. The words hit like a physical blow. Vicky felt tears prick her eyes, hot and unwelcome. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Alexandro's voice softened, just a fraction. People like your ex, they're parasites. They find someone good, someone genuine, and they drain them dry. Then they move on to the next source, leaving nothing but guilt and self-doubt behind. Ow, Vicky's voice cracked. How could you possibly know that? Because I've seen it 100 times. Hell, I've been the parasite before I learned better. He stood, pulling out his wallet. You want my advice? Don't go to that wedding. But if you do, he placed a card on the table next to a $100 bill. Call me. Vicky stared at the card. Simple. Black. Just a name and a phone number. Alexandra James. Why would I call you? Because I can help you. Help me do what? His smile was slow, dangerous, and absolutely devastating. Make him regret ever letting you go. Then he was walking toward the door, the bell chiming softly as he left. Vicky stood frozen, the card clutched in her hand, her heart racing. What has happened? She looked down at the $100 bill. Way too much for a single cup of coffee. And the card. She flipped it over. On the back, written in elegant script, were 3 words. When you're ready. Later, after her shift finally ended and she was lying in bed, unable to sleep, Vicky pulled out her phone and Googled Alexandra James. The results made her blood run cold. Business owner, yes. Legitimate enterprises on the surface, real estate, import, export, several high-end restaurants. But the forums, the whispered rumors, the newspaper articles that danced around direct accusations. Connected. Dangerous. Not someone you cross. One article from 3 years ago showed a photo of him leaving a courthouse, acquitted of charges that had mysteriously fallen apart when key witnesses refused to testify. Another mentioned his name in connection with a territorial dispute that had ended with 2 rival businessmen fleeing the city permanently. Vicky should delete his number. Throw away the card. Pretend tonight never happened. Instead, she saved his contact in her phone and lay awake until dawn, wondering what kind of help a man like Alexandra James could possibly offer, and whether she was desperate enough to find out. 3 days passed. Vicky kept the card in her pocket, a constant weight against her hip. She'd pull it out during quiet moments, between orders, during her break in the shower, and stare at the phone number like it might reveal its secrets if she looked hard enough. When you're ready. The problem was, she didn't know if she'd ever be ready. Ready for what? To accept help from a man who radiated danger? To admit she was desperate enough to consider whatever scheme he had in mind? The wedding was now 11 days away. Elena kept asking if she'd change her mind about going. Vicky kept lying, saying she wasn't sure. But the truth was, she'd already picked out a dress from the back of her closet, already researched the church's address, already imagined herself sitting in a pew, watching Brandon place a ring on Sienna's perfectly manicured finger. The thought made her physically ill. On the 4th day, she called the number. It rang twice before he answered. Alexandra James. His voice was exactly as she remembered, smooth, controlled, with an undercurrent of danger. "It's Vicky, from the diner." A pause. Then, "I was beginning to think you weren't going to call. I wasn't sure I would. But you did. Which means you've decided to go to the wedding." It wasn't a question. "How do you know that?" "Because people don't call me when they've chosen the easy path. They call when they're tired of being invisible." Vicky swallowed hard. "You said you could help me. What did you mean? Let's discuss it in person. Are you free tonight?" "I work until 8. "Perfect. There's a restaurant called Marcello's on 5th Street. Be there at 9. "I don't. I can't afford." "You're my guest. Everything's taken care of." His voice softened slightly. "Just show up, Vicky. That's all I'm asking." Then he hung up. "Okay, hold on. A mafia boss just invited her to dinner? What kind of offer is he about to make? And is Vicky really desperate enough to go through with it?" Hit that subscribe button, because the next line is where things get absolutely wild. You'll hate yourself if you miss it. Marcello's was the kind of restaurant Vicky had only seen in magazines. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, a hostess who looked like she'd stepped off a runway. The prices on the menu board outside made Vicky's monthly rent look like pocket change. She almost turned around 3 times before finally walking through the door. "Reservation?" The hostess smiled, polite but cold. I'm meeting someone." "Alexandro James." The woman's entire demeanor shifted. The polite smile became genuine, touched with something that looked almost like fear. "Of course. Right this way." She led Vicky through the restaurant, past tables of well-dressed couples, to a private room in the back. Thick curtains, soundproofed walls, a single table set for 2. Alexandro stood when she entered, buttoning his jacket in a gesture that felt oddly formal. "Vicky, thank you for coming." He looked even more devastating than she remembered. Dark suit, no tie, the top button of his shirt undone. Confident without being arrogant. Powerful without being loud. "I wasn't sure I would," she admitted. "But you did." He gestured to the chair across from him. "Please, seat." The hostess disappeared, and suddenly they were alone. Vicky sat stiffly, hyper-aware of how out of place she looked. Her best dress was 5 years old, bought on sale from a department store. Her shoes were scuffed. She hadn't had time to do more than pull her hair into a ponytail. Alexandro, meanwhile, looked like he belonged in Italian Vogue. "You look nervous," he observed. "I am nervous. I don't know why I'm here." "Yes, you do." He poured her a glass of wine from a bottle that was already open. "You're here because you're tired of feeling powerless. Because that invitation is killing you, and you don't know how to make it stop." Vicky took a large gulp of wine. It was better than anything she'd ever tasted, smooth and rich, and probably worth more than her car. "You said you could help me." "How?" Alexandro leaned back in his chair, studying her with those intense dark eyes. "I did my research after we met. Brandon Mitchell, marketing executive at Crawford & Associates. Engaged to Sienna Hargrove, daughter of Richard Hargrove, who owns half the commercial real estate in the city. Brandon's agency has been struggling for the past year, barely breaking even. Then suddenly he's engaged to Sienna, and her father's company becomes his biggest client." Vicky's stomach twisted. "He sold out. He upgraded," Alexandro corrected. "To him, Sienna isn't a person. She's a business opportunity, a key to the life he thinks he deserves. And I was just, what? A placeholder? No, you were convenient. Someone to support him when he had nothing to offer in return. But the moment someone better came along, he made a dismissive gesture. You became disposable." The words hurt, even though Vicky had thought them 1,000 times herself. "So what do you want me to do? Crash the wedding? Make a scene?" Alexandro smiled. "Nothing so crude. I'm proposing something far more elegant." He leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. "Attend the wedding as my wife." Vicky choked on her wine. "You're what?" "My wife. Or fiancé, if you prefer. The details don't matter. What matters is that you walk into that church on my arm, wearing a dress that costs more than his car, with a ring that makes Sienna's look like costume jewelry. That's insane. Is it?" Alexandro's voice was calm, reasonable. Think about it. Brandon invited you to that wedding to humiliate you, to prove he made the right choice. But what if you show up with someone who makes him look like an amateur? Someone with real power? Real wealth? You, Vicky said flatly. Me? And what do you get out of this? Alexandro's expression shifted, something darker flickering across his face. Let's just say I don't like men who treat women as disposable. Consider it a personal philosophy. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting tonight. He picked up his wine glass, swirling the dark liquid. Here's what I'm offering, a complete transformation. New clothes, new hair, coaching on how to carry yourself. You'll walk into that wedding looking like you've spent the past 6 months thriving, not surviving. And I'll be there beside you, making it clear that Brandon Mitchell made the biggest mistake of his life. Vicky's hands shook. This is crazy. Maybe, but it's also your only real option. Otherwise, you show up alone, dressed in your 5-year-old clearance dress, and Brandon gets exactly what he wanted, proof that he traded up. The accuracy of that assessment stung. What's the catch? Vicky asked. There's always a catch. Smart woman. Alexandro set down his glass. The catch is that my world is complicated. Being seen with me comes with certain assumptions. Certain risks. Risks like what? Like people wondering who you are. Like my enemies trying to figure out if you're someone they can use against me. Like stepping into a life most people spend their entire existence avoiding. So, I'd be in danger. You'd be protected. There's a difference. His voice turned serious. I have resources most people can't imagine. Security. Influence. The ability to make problems disappear. If you agree to this, you'll be safer than you've ever been in your life. And after the wedding, you walk away. Clean break. I'll set you up with enough money to start over wherever you want. Culinary school, if that's still your dream. A fresh start, far for Brandon and anyone who reminds you of him. It was too good to be true. Too easy. Why? Vicky whispered. Why would you do all of this for me? You don't even know me. Alexandro was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. Because I was you once. A long time ago. Someone who thought making myself smaller would keep me safe. Who believed love meant sacrifice. His jaw tightened. I learned the hard way that the only person you can rely on is yourself. And sometimes you need help remembering that. Vicky looked down at her hands, at the chipped nail polish and calluses from years of service industry work. I don't know if I can do this. Yes, you can. You just don't believe it yet. Alexandro reached across the table, not quite touching her. You deserve to be seen, Vicky. Not as someone's consolation prize. Not as the woman who wasn't good enough. As exactly who you are, strong, resilient, and worth 10 of Brandon Mitchell. Tears burned at the corners of her eyes. When do we start? Alexandro's smile was slow and triumphant. Tomorrow. I'll send a car for you at noon. I work tomorrow. Not anymore. I'll handle it. At her alarmed expression, he added, respectfully, I'll call your manager. Explain you're taking a leave of absence for a family matter. You'll be paid for the time. You can't just. I can. And I will. He stood, buttoning his jacket. Go home. Get some sleep. Tomorrow, your life changes. Vicky stood on shaky legs, still not entirely sure this was real. Alexandro. He paused at the door. Yes. Thank you. His expression softened. Don't thank me yet. You haven't seen what I have planned. Then he was gone, leaving Vicky alone in the private room with a half-empty glass of wine and a decision that would change everything. She pulled out her phone and looked at the calendar. 10 days until the wedding. 10 days to transform from invisible to unforgettable. 10 days to become the woman Brandon would regret losing for the rest of his life. I can do this, she told herself. And for the first time in 6 months, she almost believed it. The black Mercedes arrived at noon exactly. Vicky watched from her apartment window as the driver stepped out, a man built like a linebacker, wearing a suit that barely contained his shoulders. He didn't look up, just stood by the passenger door, waiting with the patience of someone accustomed to guarding expensive things. Her phone buzzed. Alexandro, the car is here. Don't bring anything. Everything you need will be provided. She grabbed her purse anyway, old habits, and headed downstairs, her stomach a knot of nerves in anticipation. The driver opened the door without a word. The interior smelled like leather and money. 20 minutes later, they pulled up to a building in the financial district, all glass and steel and intimidating architecture. The driver led her inside, past a security desk that waved them through without question, and into a private elevator that required a key card to operate. They rose in silence. The doors opened on the penthouse floor. Alexandro stood waiting, looking effortlessly powerful in dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. Behind him, floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city. "Vicky, welcome." He gestured to a sitting area where 3 other people waited. "We have a lot to accomplish in 10 days. Let me introduce your team." A woman in her 50s with silver hair and a measuring tape around her neck stepped forward. "Margot Chun, I'll be handling your wardrobe." A younger man with impeccable skin and eyes that missed nothing. "Dominiki Husu, hair and makeup." And a third man, compact and muscular, with a scar running through his left eyebrow. "Marco Deblin, Alexandro's right hand. Let's call it security coordination." Marco's expression suggested he found the whole situation mildly amusing. Vicky felt overwhelmed. "This is too much." "This," Alexandro said, "is what's necessary." Margot, the stylist, circled Vicky like a shark, assessing with professional detachment. "Good bone structure. Excellent proportions. We can work with this." She pulled out a tablet, already scrolling through images. "For the wedding, we need classic with an edge. Elegant but memorable. Something that photographs well from a distance." "I don't," Vicky started. "Red," Margot interrupted, holding up a swatch of fabric. "Not the dress. Your lips. Red makes a statement." Dominic nodded enthusiastically. "And we need to do something about the hair. Don't get me wrong, it's beautiful, but it's hidden potential. We need to let it breathe." Vicky touched her ponytail self-consciously. "Breathe, Marco Materth. It's hair, not a hostage." Alexandro shot him a look. "Do you have something constructive to contribute?" "Yeah, don't overthink it. She's already pretty. I just needs confidence." Marco turned to Vicky. "No offense, but you walk like you're apologizing for taking up space. We need to fix that." "Offense taken," Vicky said, but without heat. "Good. That's a start." Marco grinned. "She's got some fire under there. Let's bring it to the surface," Alexandro said. He turned to Vicky. "Today is about foundation. Wardrobe, styling, basics. Tomorrow, we start the real work." "What's the real work?" His smile was enigmatic. "Teaching you how to be dangerous." The next 6 hours were a blur. Margot dragged her through boutiques Vicky didn't even know existed, places without price tags because if you have to ask, you can't afford it. Evening gowns, cocktail dresses, shoes that cost more than a rent, jewelry that required security escorts, and the dress for the wedding. Margot had found it in a designer's private collection, midnight blue silk that hugged every curve before flowing into a subtle train. The neckline was modest enough to be elegant, daring enough to be memorable. Paired with platinum heels and a diamond bracelet Alexandro had provided without comment. When Vicky saw herself in the mirror, she didn't recognize the woman staring back. "I can't afford any of this," she whispered. Margot waved a dismissive hand. "Already handled. Mr. James takes care of his people." His people, as if Vicky belonged to him now. The thought should have been alarming. Instead, it felt safe. Dominic spent 3 hours on her hair, cutting away years of split ends, adding layers that brought out natural waves she'd forgotten she had. No color. He insisted her natural chestnut was criminally underappreciated. "You've been hiding," he said, running the product through the ends. "Pulling it back, keeping out of the way. But hair like this? It's meant to be seen. I didn't think it mattered. That's the problem. Everything matters when you're trying to make an impression." He stepped back, admiring his work. "There, Now you look like someone who knows what she wants. In the mirror, Vicky saw a stranger. Her hair fell in soft waves around her face, framing features she'd forgotten were pretty. With Dominic's subtle makeup, just enough to enhance, not mask, she looked confident, like someone who belonged in Alexandro's world. I don't feel like me, she admitted. Good, Dominic said. The old you let people walk all over her. This you? She doesn't apologize for existing. By the time they finished, it was nearly 8 p.m. Alexandro had disappeared hours ago, handling business calls in his office. Marco had stayed, lounging on a leather couch, occasionally offering sardonic commentary on the proceedings. You hungry? He asked as Margot and Dominic packed up. Vicky realized she hadn't eaten all day. Starving. Good. Boss wants you to have dinner with him. Private room. Just you two. Something in his tone made her nervous. Why? Because the outside's handled. Now we need to work on the inside. Marco stood, stretching. Fair warning. He's going to push you. Test your limits. Don't let him see you break. I'm not. Yeah, you are. Everyone breaks. The question is whether you get back up. He studied her with sharp eyes. You want my advice? Stop thinking about what Brandon took from you. Start thinking about what you're going to take back. So she's got the dress, the hair, the look, but what about the confidence? And what exactly does Alexandro have planned for their private dinner? Subscribe and turn on notifications because the next phase gets intense. Trust me, you don't want to miss this transformation. Dinner was served in the penthouse's dining room, an intimate space with a table that could seat 12 but was set for 2. Alexandro poured wine, different from the restaurant, this time white and crisp, and studied Vicky with those penetrating dark eyes. You look different. That was kind of the point. Not just the styling. Your posture. You're sitting up straighter. Vicky hadn't noticed, but he was right. Something about the past several hours, being measured, styled, transformed, had shifted something inside her. Margot kept telling me to claim my space, she said. Smart woman. But styling only gets you so far. When you walk into that wedding, you need to believe you deserve to be there. Not as Brandon's discarded ex. As someone who outgrew him. I don't know how to do that. Then I'll teach you. Alexandro leaned forward. Tell me what you sacrificed for Brandon. The question caught her off guard. What? You spent 3 years with him. What did you give up? Vicky looked down at her plate. Culinary school. I was supposed to start the semester after we met, but he said what? That we should focus on building his career first. That there would be time for mine later. And you believed him. I loved him. That's not the same thing. Alexandro's voice was gentle but firm. What else? The words came slowly, painfully. I stopped seeing my friends because his networking events were more important. I worked double shifts to cover rent when his agency was struggling. I canceled a trip to visit my sister because he needed me for some pitch meeting. Her voice cracked. I made myself so small that by the time he left, I'd forgotten what I even wanted anymore. And that, Alexandro said quietly, is why he discarded you. Not because you weren't enough. Because you gave him everything, and people don't value what comes easy. Vicky felt tears threatening. That's a horrible way to see relationships. It's the honest way. He refilled her wine glass. Love shouldn't require martyrdom, Vicky. Real love makes you bigger, not smaller. Braver, not afraid. If someone demands you erase yourself to earn their affection, they don't love you. They love what you can provide. Did someone do that to you? His expression shuddered. Once. A long time ago. I learned better. They ate in silence for a few minutes, the weight of shared understanding heavy between them. Why are you really doing this? Vicky asked finally. The truth this time. Alexandro set down his fork, considering. Because I see myself in you. The version of me that existed before I learned how to be ruthless. Before I understood that power isn't about violence. It's about refusing to be diminished. So, this is about teaching me to be ruthless? No, it's about teaching you to take up space without apologizing for it. He stood, coming around to her side of the table. Stand up. Vicky obeyed, confused. Walk across the room. She did, self-consciously aware of his eyes, tracking her movement. Again. But this time, walk like you own the building. I don't know how to. Yes, you do. You're just afraid of what people will think. His voice turned commanding. Shoulders back. Chin up. Eyes forward. Don't ask permission to exist, Vicky. Claim it. She tried again, forcing her spine straight, her gaze level. Better. But you're still hesitating. Still checking to see if someone's going to stop you. He moved closer, his presence overwhelming. No one's going to stop you. Not anymore. Walk like you already know that. It took 7 tries. 7 times walking across the room while Alexandro offered corrections. Stand taller, move slower, make them wait for you. Until finally, something clicked. The 8th time, Vicky walked with purpose. With confidence. Like she was exactly where she belonged and didn't care who disagreed. There, Alexandro said, and there was satisfaction in his voice. That's the woman who walks into the wedding. That's who Brandon's going to see. Vicky felt breathless. Powerful. Like she'd accessed something that had been buried so deep she'd forgotten it existed. I don't know if I can maintain this for an entire day. You won't have to. Muscle memory. By the time we're done, you'll carry yourself like this without thinking. He checked his watch. It's late. Marco will drive you home. Be back here at 10 a.m. tomorrow. We're not done yet. What's tomorrow? His smile was dark. Tomorrow, I will teach you how to devastate someone without saying a word. That night, lying in bed, Vicky pulled up Brandon's Instagram. She'd avoided it for months, unable to stomach the endless photos of his new life. But tonight, for the first time, looking at his face didn't hurt. It made her angry. Angry that she'd wasted 3 years on someone so shallow. Angry that she believed his bullshit about timing and ambition. Angry that she'd nearly let him steal her entire identity. Never again, she thought. And for the first time since the breakup, she fell asleep without crying. 9 days had passed. 9 days of training with Alexandro. 9 days of learning how to command a room with nothing but posture and eye contact. 9 days of Marco teaching her how to spot threats, how to navigate dangerous spaces, how to exist in Alexandro's world without flinching. And now, sitting in the back of his Rolls Royce as they pulled up to St. Catherine's Church, Vicky felt like a completely different person. The dress Margot had chosen fit like it was painted on. Midnight blue silk that caught the light with every movement. The diamond bracelet on her wrist probably cost more than her entire apartment. Her hair fell in perfect waves, courtesy of Dominic's last-minute touch-up. Red lips, smoky eyes, heels that made her legs look endless. She looked expensive, untouchable, dangerous, exactly as planned. Nervous? Alexandro asked. He sat beside her in a 3-piece Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than a mid-range car, looking like he was attending a coronation rather than someone else's wedding. Dark hair perfectly styled, jaw clean-shaven, a Patek Philippe watch gleaming at his wrist. Together, they looked like old money and new power. Terrified, Vicky admitted, "Good. Fear keeps you sharp." He adjusted his cufflinks. The gesture casual, but deliberate. "Remember what we discussed. You're not here to confront him. You're here to remind him what he lost. And if he tries to talk to me, let him. Just remember, you're the one with power now. Not him." The car stopped. Marco appeared at the door, opening it with practiced efficiency. Showtime. Alexandro stepped out first, then extended his hand to help Vicky. The moment her heels touched the pavement, heads turned. The church steps were crowded with guests. Women in designer dresses, men in expensive suits, everyone preening and networking even before the ceremony. The kind of crowd that measured worth in zeros and connections. And every single one of them stopped to stare. At Alexandro first, because of course they did. His reputation preceded him. Whispers of power and danger and money that ran deeper than most people's family trees. But then their eyes shifted to Vicky. To the woman on his arm who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Who carried herself with the kind of confidence money couldn't buy. Vicky felt their assessment, their jealousy, their immediate recalculation of her worth based solely on who she was standing next to. And for the first time in her life, she didn't shrink from it. Ready, Alexandro murmured, offering his arm. Vicky took it, feeling the solid strength beneath the expensive fabric. Ready. They walked up the steps, moving at a pace that was leisurely but purposeful. Not rushing, not hesitating, simply claiming space. The whispers started immediately. Who is that? Is that Alexandro James? Who's the woman with him? I heard he doesn't date. She's gorgeous. Wait, doesn't she look familiar? At the top of the steps, a coordinator with a clipboard rushed over, clearly flustered. I'm sorry, sir, but I don't have you on the guest list. Alexandro handed her Vicky's invitation without breaking stride. The woman's eyes widened as she read the name. Oh, Miss McDonald, of course. She looked between them, confusion evident. I'm sorry, I thought you were. Arriving alone? Vicky supplied, her voice calm and clear. Plans changed. Yes, of course. Please, right this way. They were escorted inside, where the church's interior was decorated with obscene extravagance. White roses everywhere, massive floral arrangements, hundreds of candles. Brandon's Instagram aesthetic brought to life. Vicky scanned the assembled guests, looking for familiar faces. There, third row, Elena, her best friend, who'd been invited despite never liking Brandon. Elena's eyes went wide when she spotted Vicky, mouthing, "Oh my God," with obvious delight. And there, near the front, Brandon. He stood with his groomsmen, laughing at some joke, looking every inch the successful executive in his designer tuxedo. Handsome, charming, completely oblivious, too. He turned, saw her, froze. The blood drained from his face so quickly Vicky thought he might faint. Is that? He squinted, as if he couldn't trust his eyes. Vicky. The name carried a ripple through the crowd. Heads turned. Gasps rippled through the church. Brandon started walking toward them, his expression cycling through shock, confusion, and something that looked uncomfortably like fear. Vicky. He stopped a few feet away, staring. Wow. You look different, she supplied. Thank you. It's amazing what 6 months of growth can do. His eyes shifted to Alexandro, and Vicky watched the exact moment recognition hit. Holy shit, Brandon breathed. You're Alexandro James. I am. Alexandro extended his hand, the gesture polite but containing something darker. Congratulations on your wedding. Brandon, isn't it? Brandon's hand shook as they clasped. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. He looked between them, clearly trying to process. How do you two? Vicky, I didn't know you were seeing anyone. Didn't you? Vicky smiled, the expression Alexandro had coached her on, pleasant but containing steel. I suppose we haven't talked in a while. So much has changed. I can see that. Brandon's voice had an edge now, pride wounded. We didn't mention bringing someone. The RSVP, said Vicky McDonald and guest. I brought a guest. She tilted her head. Is that a problem? No, of course not. He ran a hand through his hair, the gesture revealing his agitation. I'm surprised, that's all. You look really different. I feel different. Alexandro's hand moved to the small of her back, a gesture of possession that didn't go unnoticed. We should find our seats, darling. The ceremony's about to start. Darling. The word landed like a bomb. Brandon's jaw tightened. Right? Yeah, I should. I need to. He backed away, still staring at Vicky like she was a stranger. It's good to see you. Is it? Vicky asked softly. He didn't answer, just retreated to his groomsmen, who immediately surrounded him with urgent whispers. As Alexandro led her to their seats, prime location, middle aisle, impossible to ignore, Vicky felt adrenaline singing through her veins. That, Alexandro murmured, was perfect. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. He saw what he threw away and realized it's now completely out of reach. They sat, and Vicky became hyper-aware of the stairs. People craning their necks to get a better look. Phones being subtly angled for photos. Whispered conversations behind hands. Elena slipped into the seat behind them, leaning forward. Girl, what the fuck? You show up looking like a goddess with the Alexandro James, and you didn't even warn me. It's complicated, Vicky whispered back. I don't care how complicated it is. I want every detail. Elena glanced at Alexandro, who turned to acknowledge her with a polite nod. Elena Torres, Vicky's best friend and the person who's going to murder her later for not calling me. Alexandro. Pleasure. His smile was charming, dangerous. I've heard about you. Oh, have you? Elena's eyebrow arched. Before anyone could respond, the music changed. The ceremony was beginning. Watching Brandon marry Sienna should have hurt. That's what Vicky had expected. Months of dreading this moment. Imagining the pain of watching him pledge his life to someone else. But sitting in that church, Alexandro's presence solid beside her, she felt nothing. No heartbreak. No jealousy. No desperate wish that it was her up there. Just profound relief that it wasn't. Because looking at Brandon now, really looking, she saw him clearly for the first time. The way he kept glancing at the crowd, making sure people were watching. The way he positioned himself for the best photo angles. The way his vows sounded rehearsed, performed, designed for maximum Instagram engagement. He'd never loved her. She realized that now. He'd loved what she provided. Emotional support, financial stability, uncritical adoration. And the moment someone came along who could provide more status, connections, wealth, he'd trade it up without a second thought. God, I wasted so much time. Alexandro's hand found hers, threading their fingers together. The gesture was subtle, invisible to most of the crowd, but it anchored her. I'm not that person anymore, she thought. I'm never going to be that person again. When the ceremony ended and the recessional began, Brandon and Sienna walked back down the aisle as husband and wife. Brandon's eyes found Vicky's as he passed. She smiled at him, polite, distant, completely unmoved, and watched something die in his expression. The look of a man who just realized he'd made a terrible mistake. And there was absolutely nothing he could do about it. The reception was held at the Hargrove Estate, a sprawling property with manicure gardens and a ballroom that probably cost more to decorate than most people's entire weddings. Vicky stepped out of the car and immediately understood why Brandon had been so desperate to marry into this family. This wasn't just wealth. This was generational power. Old money that whispered instead of shouted. Impressive, Marco said, appearing at their side. He'd been following in a second car, professional as always. Though personally, I find this extravagance tacky. You find everything tacky, Alexandro said. Because most things are. Inside, the reception was already in full swing. Crystal chandeliers, live orchestra, champagne towers, and a guest list that read like a who's who of the city's elite. Vicky recognized several faces from magazine covers. Politicians, CEOs, the kind of people who moved through life with the confidence of those who'd never been told no. Stay close, Alexandro murmured. Some of these people are sharks. I thought you were a shark. His smile was sharp. I'm the shark they're afraid of. Different category. They made their way through the crowd, and Vicky watched the ripple effect of their presence. Conversations pausing, eyes tracking, the subtle recalibration of social hierarchy happening in real time. Because wherever Alexandro James went, he was the most important person in the room. And by extension, so was whoever stood beside him. Vicky, she turned to find Sienna Hargrove, now Sienna Mitchell, bearing down on them, wedding dress and all. Up close, she was even more stunning than her Instagram photo suggested. Flawless skin, perfect hair, the kind of beauty that came from excellent genetics and expensive maintenance. Sienna, congratulations. Thank you. Sienna's smile was bright, but didn't reach her eyes. I'm so glad you could make it. Brandon mentioned you might not come. Did he? Vicky kept her voice pleasant. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Sienna's gaze shifted to Alexandro, and something predatory flickered across her face. And you brought a guest. How lovely. I don't believe we've been introduced. Alexandro James. He took her hand, lifting it briefly but not quite kissing it, a gesture that was polite but contained subtle dismissal. Beautiful ceremony. Your father must be very proud. Oh, he is. Sienna's eyes lingered on him a beat too long. I've heard so much about you. Your reputation precedes you. I'm sure it does. The tension between them was palpable. Sienna clearly recognized status when she saw it, and was recalculating Vicky's worth based on who she'd arrived with. So, Vicky, Sienna continued, her tone just a shade too sweet. Brandon mentioned you two dated in college? How sweet that you stayed friends. We dated for 3 years. Until 6 months ago. Vicky's smile never wavered. But I'm sure he mentioned that. Sienna's expression flickered. Oh, I thought, well, Brandon said it was a casual thing. That it ended amicably ages ago. Liar. Vicky felt Alexandro's hand press gently against her back, a silent reminder to stay calm. Brandon remembers things the way that's most convenient for him, Vicky said evenly. It's one of his more charming qualities. I see. Sienna's mask slipped, revealing steel underneath. Well, I'm sure whatever happened, it worked out for the best. After all, you're here with. She gestured to Alexandro. Him, and Brandon's with me. Everyone wins. Indeed, Alexandro said, his voice smooth and dangerous. Though I'm curious, does your father know about Brandon's financial situation before your engagement? The struggling agency, the mounting debt, the rather convenient timing of your relationship. Sienna's smile froze. I'm sure it's all very romantic, Alexandro continued, as if he hadn't just dropped a bomb. But as someone who understands business, I find the optics interesting. I should go, Sienna said quickly. Guests to greet. Lovely to meet you both. She disappeared into the crowd, her perfect composure cracking at the edges. That was brutal, Vicky said. That was necessary. She was testing you. Alexandro guided her toward the bar. People like Sienna measure worth in transactions. She needed to understand that you're not someone she can dismiss. At the bar, they ordered drinks, whiskey for him, champagne for her, and Vicky took a moment to breathe. This is exhausting. Welcome to high society. It's all performance and psychological warfare. He raised his glass. You're doing remarkably well. I don't feel like it. That's because you're still thinking of yourself as the woman Brandon discarded. But look around. See how people are watching you? That's not pity. That's intrigue, envy, respect. Vicky glanced around and realized he was right. Women were studying her dress, her jewelry, trying to figure out who she was. Men were looking at Alexandro with a mixture of deference and fear. She was no longer invisible. There you are. Brandon's voice made her tense. He approached alone, having ditched his groomsmen, and he looked unsteady. Not drunk exactly, but rattled, like his perfect day was slipping through his fingers. Brandon. Vicky turned, keeping her expression neutral. Enjoying your reception? Yeah, it's great. Everything's great. He rubbed the back of his neck, a tell she remembered from their relationship. He did it when he was nervous. Listen, can we talk? Alone? No. The word came out flat, final. Brandon blinked. What? No, we can't talk alone. Anything you have to say to me, you can say in front of Alexandro. Come on, Vicky, don't be like that. We have history. Add. Past tense. She sipped her champagne, remarkably calm despite her racing heart. You made it very clear 6 months ago that our history didn't matter. I'm simply respecting your decision. That's not fair. You're taking this the wrong way. Am I? Vicky set down her glass. You ended a 3-year relationship via text message, got engaged 2 weeks later, and invited me to your wedding. Which part am I misunderstanding? Brandon's face flushed. I wanted you to see that I'd moved on, that we could be mature about this. Mature. Vicky laughed, a sound without humor. You wanted me to see what you think is an upgrade. You wanted proof that you made the right choice. That's not. But here's what you didn't expect. She stepped closer, voice dropping. You expected me to show up broken, devastated, proof that I was still pining for you. Instead, I walked in looking better than you've ever seen me, with someone who makes you look like a child playing dress up. This is about him. Brandon's voice turned sharp. You're trying to make me jealous? Alexandro made a sound that might have been amusement. Bold assumption. Brandon ignored him, focused entirely on Vicky. I know you, Vicky. You don't date guys like him. This whole thing, the dress, the attitude, it's an act. You're not fooling anyone. You're right, Vicky said quietly. You didn't know me. The woman who apologized for existing. Who made herself small because she thought that's what love required. But that woman's gone, Brandon. And you're the reason why. His jaw tightened. So what? You're punishing me? Showing up here with, he gestured dismissively at Alexandro. With him to prove some point? I'm not punishing you. Vicky's voice was steady, clear. I'm thanking you. That stopped him. Thanking me for showing me exactly how little I was worth to you. For teaching me that I needed to stop waiting for someone else to see my value and start claiming it myself. She picked up her champagne again. So thank you, Brandon. This day has been incredibly enlightening. She turned to walk away. Brandon grabbed her arm. It was a mistake. Alexandro moved with terrifying speed, his hand clamping around Brandon's wrist in a grip that made the other man wince. I'd recommend, Alexandro said, his voice soft and deadly, that you remove your hand. Now, Brandon let go immediately, stepping back. I didn't mean, I wasn't going to. I know exactly what you meant. Alexandro released him, but didn't step away. And I know exactly what you are. A parasite. Someone who finds good people, drains them of everything useful, then discards them when something shinier comes along. You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I? Alexandro smiled, and there was nothing pleasant about it. I know your agency is hemorrhaging money. I know you're only solvent because Sienna's father is now your primary client. I know that without this marriage, you'd be filing for bankruptcy within 6 months. Brandon's face went white. How could you possibly? I'm making my business to know things, especially about people who hurt those under my protection. He leaned in, voice dropping to a murmur that somehow carried more menace than any shout. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to stay away from Vicky. Completely. You won't call her, text her, or acknowledge her existence. If I hear otherwise, I'll make a single phone call, and your father-in-law will discover some very interesting information about how you've been positioning his investments. You're threatening me? I'm educating you. There's a difference. Alexandro straightened his jacket. Enjoy your wedding, Brandon. It's the last good day you'll have if you make the wrong choice here. They walked away, leaving Brandon frozen in place. Vicky's hands shook as they exited the ballroom onto a terrace overlooking the gardens. The cool night air hit her face, sharp and clarifying. I'm sorry, she said. I shouldn't have let him get to me. You didn't let him get to you. You held your ground. That took courage. Alexandro handed her his whiskey. Drink. You've earned it. She took a sip, the burn grounding her. He really thought I'd still be pining for him, she said wonderingly. After everything, men like Brandon can't conceive of a world where they're not the center of attention. It's pathological. He looked out over the gardens. The truth is, you outgrew him the moment he walked away. You just needed to see it for yourself. Vicky thought about that. About the woman she'd been 6 months ago, so desperate for his approval that she'd erased herself trying to earn it. And the woman she was now, standing in a designer dress, protected by a man powerful enough to destroy Brandon with a phone call, finally understanding her worth. Thank you, she said quietly, for all of this, for seeing me when I couldn't see myself. Alexandro turned to her, his expression softer than she'd ever seen it. You were always there, Vicky. I just held up a mirror. For a moment, they stood in comfortable silence, the sounds of the reception muffled behind them. What happens now? Vicky asked. Now, we enjoy the rest of the evening. Let Brandon stew in his realization. And tomorrow, he smiled. Tomorrow, we figure out what comes next. Okay, wow. Brandon just got destroyed. But here's the real question. Was this all just business for Alexandro, or is he falling for Vicky too? And what happens when she has to decide if she's ready for his world? Subscribe because these last laps are going to wreck you emotionally. Fair warning. 5 days after the wedding, Vicky sat in Alexandro's penthouse, staring at the city lights and feeling completely untethered. The wedding had been everything they planned. Brandon's humiliation, Sienna's barely concealed fury, the whispers and stares and social media explosion that followed. Photos of Vicky and Alexandro had circulated for days, spawning speculation and gossip. Mission accomplished. Except now, sitting in borrowed luxury with a closet full of clothes she hadn't paid for, Vicky realized she had no idea what came next. The arrangement had been clear from the beginning. Attend the wedding. Get her revenge. Walk away with enough money to start over. Clean break. But somewhere between the transformation and the confrontation and the countless hours spent in Alexandro's presence, the lines had blurred. She wasn't sure she wanted to walk away, and that terrified her. You've been quiet all day. She turned to find Alexandro in the doorway, having changed from his business suit into more casual slacks and a black t-shirt. Somehow, he looked even more devastating dressed down. Just thinking, she said, about what comes next? He crossed the room, settling into the chair across from her with that predatory grace she'd come to recognize. We should discuss that. Vicky's stomach tightened. Okay. The original agreement was for you to attend the wedding. That's done. Which means, he paused, choosing his words carefully. Which means you're free to leave whenever you'd like. I've already arranged a trust fund in your name, enough to cover culinary school, living expenses, and whatever else you need for the next several years. That's too much. It's what we agreed on. I know, but no buts. You held up your end. I'm holding up mine. His expression was unreadable. Marco can drive you wherever you want to go. New city, if you prefer. Fresh start. No ties to Brandon or anyone who reminds you of him. It was everything she'd wanted 6 months ago. Freedom. Independence. The chance to pursue her dreams without anyone holding her back. So why did it feel like her chest was being crushed? What if I don't want to leave? The words came out small, uncertain. Alexandro went very still. Vicky, I know what we agreed. I know this was supposed to be temporary. But she forced herself to meet his eyes. I'm not ready to walk away. From this. From you. You don't know what you're saying. Don't I? She stood, needing to move. For 3 years, I made myself smaller for Brandon. I convinced myself that sacrifice meant love. And then you showed up and taught me that I could take up space. That I didn't need permission to exist. That was the point. To show you that you didn't need anyone, including me. I know I don't need you. That's not what this is about. Vicky turned back to him, hands trembling. But what if I want you anyway? What if I'm tired of running from things that scare me? Alexandro rose, his expression darker than she'd ever seen it. You think you want this? My world. My life. But you don't understand what that means. Then explain it to me. I'm not a good man, Vicky. His voice turned harsh, deliberately cutting. The businesses I run, some of them are legitimate. Most aren't. I've hurt people. I've made decisions that would horrify you. The reason people fear me isn't because of reputation. It's because of reality. I know that. Do you? Because knowing intellectually and living with it are two different things. He stepped closer, and she could see the war happening behind his eyes. If you stay, you'll be a target. My enemies will try to use you against me. You'll live with constant security. Constant danger. You'll see sides of me that aren't polished or controlled. I'm not asking for perfect. I'm asking for honest. I'm trying to be honest. His jaw tightened. I'm trying to do the right thing for once in my life and let you go before you get hurt. What if I'm already hurt? Vicky's voice cracked. What if walking away from you feels worse than any danger you're warning me about? They stood frozen, inches apart, the air between them electric. You deserve better than this, Alexandro said finally, and there was something raw in his voice. Better than me. That's not your decision to make. Isn't it? I'm the one who brought you into this. I'm responsible. I'm not one of your businesses, Alexandro. I'm not something you manage or protect or control. Vicky stepped closer, close enough to see the conflict written across his face. I'm asking you what you want, not what you think is best for me, not what's safest. What do you want? For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, I want you to stay. More than I've wanted anything in years. And that's exactly why I shouldn't ask. Too late. You just did. Vicky reached up, her hand trembling as it touched his face. I'm not promising I'll be perfect at this. I'm not promising I won't be scared. But I'm choosing this. I'm choosing you. With my eyes wide open, something in Alexandro broke. He pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers, his breath ragged. If you stay, there are rules. I'm listening. Honesty. Complete. No matter how ugly the truth is. I won't hide my world from you, and you don't hide your fears from me. Agreed. We move at your pace. Not mine. If something's too much, you say so. No martyrdom. No sacrificing yourself, because you think that's what I need. Vicky felt tears prick her eyes. Okay. And autonomy. You still pursue your dreams. Still build your own life. Being with me doesn't mean being consumed by me. Are you sure about that? She asked softly. Because you seem pretty used to being in control. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. I'm learning flexibility. It's painful, but I'm trying. Then I have a rule too. Name it. Don't protect me from everything. Don't keep me in a bubble because you're afraid I'll break. She held his gaze. I'm stronger than you think. Stronger than I thought. Let me prove it. Alexandro studied her for a long moment, and she saw the exact second he made his decision. All right, he said. Stay. But on your terms. Then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was months of tension and unspoken longing and the release of walls they'd both been maintaining. His hands tangled in her hair, her arms wrapped around his neck, and for the first time since Brandon's text message 6 months ago, Vicky felt whole. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Alexandro rested his forehead against hers again. This is insane, he murmured. Probably. I'm going to drive you crazy. I'm counting on it. He laughed, the sound low and genuine. What am I going to do with you? Love me, Vicky said simply. Just love me without asking me to disappear. His arms tightened around her. I can do that. They stood there for a long time, the city glittering below them, both knowing they were stepping into something complicated and dangerous and absolutely terrifying. But for the first time in months, maybe years, Vicky wasn't afraid. She was free. 6 months later, the kitchen smelled like caramelized onions and fresh bread. Vicky stood at the counter of her new apartment, the one Alexandro had insisted she get in her own name. With her own money earned from the part-time catering business she'd started while attending culinary school, and plated the final course of tonight's dinner. Braised short ribs, roasted root vegetables, a red wine reduction she'd spent hours perfecting. It was a celebration. Her first semester was completed with honors. Her business is already booking private events for next month. 6 months of building a life that was entirely, authentically hers. Something smells incredible. She turned to find Alexandro in the doorway, having let himself in with the key she'd given him last month. He'd loosened his tie, sleeves rolled up, looking tired but content. Long day? She asked. Endless conference calls and territorial disputes. The usual. He crossed her, pressing a kiss to her temple. But coming home to this makes it worth it. This isn't your home. No, but you are. He stole a bite of the short rib, groaning appreciatively. God, you're talented. Vicky felt warmth bloom in her chest. 6 months in, and compliment from him still made her glow. Elena's coming by later, she said, checking the time. She wants details on the Garrison event. I'm catering next week. The mayor's daughter's engagement party? Alexandro raised an eyebrow. Impressive client list. What can I say? Apparently dating a dangerous man has networking benefits. Is that what I am? Dangerous? Amongst other things. She turned, wrapping her arms around his neck. Protective. Surprisingly thoughtful. Terrible at sharing dessert. He smiled, pulling her closer. I can't help it. You make everything taste better. They swayed slightly, moving to music that wasn't playing, both content to simply exist in the moment. Vicky's phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it, then froze. Unknown number. Hi, Vicky. I know I don't have a right to reach out, but I wanted to apologize for how things ended between us. I've been thinking about you a lot lately. Maybe we could talk. Coffee sometime? I'd really like to explain. She deleted the message without reading the rest. Brandon, Alexandro asked, having seen her expression. Third time this month. She set her phone down, feeling nothing. Apparently, the marriage isn't going well. And nothing. His choices aren't my problem anymore. Alexandro studied her face. You don't feel anything? Vicky considered the question honestly. 6 months ago, even 3 months ago, Brandon's name would have sent her into a spiral. Self-doubt. Second-guessing. The old reflex of wondering if she'd made a mistake. Now, she felt only profound indifference. No, she said finally. I don't. He's just someone I used to know. Someone who taught me exactly what I don't want. And what do you want? She looked up at him. This complicated, dangerous man who'd helped her remember who she was, who challenged her and protected her and never once asked her to be smaller. This, she said simply, messy and complicated and real. A life I built myself. Dreams I'm actually pursuing. And someone who loves me without demanding I disappear. Even when that someone has enemies and a morally ambiguous career? Even then, she smiled, though I'm still working on accepting the excessive security. Marco's just thorough. Marco follows me to the grocery store. Because there are people who'd love to use you against me. It's not negotiable. They'd had this argument before. Would probably have it again. But Vicky had come to understand that this was Alexandro's way of saying, I love you. Through protection, through ensuring her safety, through taking her dreams seriously enough to secure them. Fine, she conceded. But when I'm at culinary school, he has to wait outside. The other students are starting to think I'm in witness protection. Deal. A knock at the door announced Elena's arrival. Dinner became laughter and stories, and Elena grilling Alexandro about his intentions, while he bore it with surprising patience. Marco eventually joined them, making dry comments about their security protocols and eating half the short ribs. It was chaotic and warm and nothing like the quiet, careful life Vicky had lived with Brandon. It was better. Later, after Elena and Marco had left and Alexandro was helping with dishes despite her protests, Vicky's phone buzzed again. This time, it was a notification from Instagram. She'd reactivated her account last month, finally ready to reclaim that space. A tag photo from the Garrison event she'd catered. Professional shots of her plated desserts, her working in the kitchen, the satisfied faces of guests. The comments were full of praise. Compliments on her talent, requests for bookings, people asking how to contact her business. She showed Alexandro, grinning. Look at this engagement. You're going to be booked solid by next month. I know. It's terrifying and exciting, and she paused, emotion catching in her throat. A year ago, I couldn't imagine this. Any of this. A year ago, you were still trying to earn love from someone incapable of giving it. Alexandro set down the dish towel, turning to face her fully. Now you're building a life that doesn't require anyone's approval but your own. With some help, you would have found your way eventually. I just sped up the timeline. Vicky thought about that. About the woman who'd opened that wedding invitation with shaking hands, convinced she'd never be enough. And the woman she was now, confident, ambitious, unafraid to take up space. Thank you, she said quietly, for seeing me when I couldn't see myself. Alexandro's expression softened. Thank you for staying when I tried to push you away. They finished the dishes in companionable silence, both lost in their own thoughts. Before Alexandro left, he still maintained his own space, both of them agreeing they needed separate lives even as they built something together. He pulled her close one more time. I love you, he said. Simple, direct, no games. Vicky's chest tightened with emotion. I love you too, even when I'm overbearing and controlling. Even then, though I reserve the right to call you out on it. I'd be disappointed if you didn't. He kissed her forehead. See you tomorrow? I'll be at school until 3, Then I have a tasting appointment at 5. Text me when you're home. Marco will be nearby regardless, but I like to know you're safe. So controlling, she teased. So in love, he corrected. After he left, Vicky stood in her kitchen, in her apartment, building her business, and felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Peace. Not because everything was perfect. Her life was still complicated. Dating Alexandro came with challenges she was still learning to navigate. She had moments of doubt, of wondering if she'd chosen safety over genuine connection. But those moments were fleeting, because what she'd learned over the past 6 months was profound. She didn't need Alexandro to be complete. She chose him anyway, and that choice, made freely, without coercion or desperation, was what made it real. 1 year after the wedding, Vicky received another invitation in the mail. This one wasn't on expensive cardstock. It was a simple card, handwritten from Brandon. Vicky, I know I don't deserve your time, but I wanted you to know that Sienna and I are separating. You were right about everything. I was a coward who chose status over substance. I'll regret losing you for the rest of my life. If you're willing, I'd like to apologize properly. No expectations. Just closure. B. Vicky read it once, then put it in the trash. Not out of anger. Not out of vindictiveness. Simply because it didn't matter anymore. Brandon's regret didn't validate her. His apology didn't heal her. She'd done that work herself. And now, standing in the life she'd built, messy and complicated and absolutely, perfectly hers, she finally understood what freedom meant. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't proving someone wrong. It was choosing yourself. Every single day, regardless of who's watching. Vicky pulled out her phone and sent a text. Vicky, dinner at my place tonight? I'm testing a new recipe. Alexandro, I'll bring wine. And Marco, because you know he'll complain if I don't invite him. Vicky, tell him he has to actually help cook this time. Alexandro, he'll be thrilled. See you at 7. She smiled, set down her phone, and got to work. Not for Brandon, not for anyone else, for herself. And that made all the difference. They say the best revenge is living well. But Vicky McDonald learned it wasn't about revenge at all. It was about choosing power, choosing growth, choosing love that didn't demand she disappear. And every single day, she chose herself. That was her victory. That was her liberation. And it was better than any revenge could ever be. Thanks for watching this far, and thanks for staying on my channel. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to subscribe and tell us where you are watching from. Stay glued.